Welcome back to 100 Days of Code. I am Shruti and I'm back with week 9 of 100 Days of Code with you. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, or you feel you want to catch up with the older videos and older days of code, you can click on any of the links in the description. We have the past blog post with solutions to day 0 to 40. We also have a playlist called 100 Days of Code here on YouTube on the channel Here Maps, and you'll find all the 100 Days of Code solutions there. We also have a link to our GitHub where you have all the codes from day 0 to 40, which you can just clone and start coding after that point. So, welcome to day 41. And with day 41, we are going to start looking at the routing API. And specifically, we are going to look at the routing version 8 API. So as routing says, as the name suggests, routing is basically it gives you a route from A to B. But along with that, it also gives you many other additional information. It gives you additional attributes that you can use for creating a navigation app or creating a simple routing app. So let's begin with this. So if we go to routing version 8, you'll see you have the developer guide where you can start with, you have some concepts if you want to understand. What I'm interested in is the API reference where I can see, where I can unfold the API completely, know all its parameters, etc. So with day 41, what we want to do is get a simple um, route with a car from point A to point B. And now if you check the API, you'll see that the structure is that so this is basically I'm using a JavaScript wrapper on top of this REST API. But with this, what I have is I'm going to send in some routing parameters. I have an on result function where I'm going to handle the result that I get, the route that I get. And then I have an error handler as well. And you'll get to see all the error codes in the API swagger, as we called it. So you'll get to see all the response codes, error codes, etc. So with this, I'm going to start writing my routing parameters. Now, if you see the description of all the parameters, you'll see that there are certain which are compulsory. So I'm going to write them down as it is. So you have transport mode, which is compulsory or required. You have the origin, right? Of course, if you want to have a route from A to B, you need the point A, which is the origin. And then you have the destination. We're going to talk about it soon. So you have the destination. And we can also add something. So just the three would suffice for now. And so what we want is a car route from point A to point B, right? And so I will write car here. So if you see the transport modes, supported transport modes are car, truck, and pedestrian. So I'm going to write in car here. And now as the origin, I want the point I am at right now. So I'm going to quickly disable this. Let's see. So now if I do this, I get my position. If you remember, we had logged it out on the console. So we have origin latitude, origin longitude. So the format is that of a waypoint, and you have latitude, comma, longitude. So I'm going to use that. And then destination, let's see, where do I go? I want to go, maybe in wedding. Yeah, sounds good. Let's select this point. So now I have the position of this point. I'm going to use this as my latitude and longitude. And now if I open up this call, I want to log my result. So I'm going to do console.log result. So you do get a route, and you get sections of the route, right? You get what is the departure, what is the arrival, what is the ID of the route, what is the type of vehicle. But now what you also want to look at is the return type. So by default, the routing call just returns you the ID of the route. But if you want to do something with the route, like draw it out or like put out some details, what you need to look at is the return parameter in the route. So let's go to return. And in this parameter, I'm going to add a polyline. So a polyline is nothing but the line. So the points in the line that connects point A to B. So if in the future I want to draw this line out, I will get this line and use this to represent it on the map where my route from A to B is. So now if I save this and if I see this, what I get is within the sections, I have the polyline. And this is the encoded flexible polyline that you get, which when decoded can give you all the points in that line that joins A to B through a car route. So that's it for day 41. With day 42, what we're going to do is use the polyline received in the routing result from day 41 and draw it out on the map. So we've already seen that by including polyline in the result, you get the this polyline. But what is this polyline? It doesn't make any sense, right? So what this is the flexible polyline, and it is an encoded form of polyline. And if you click on this, you'll see what kind of encoding is used, what if you want to decode it in some other format. If you want to use it, you can read all about it here. What the nice guys at the JavaScript team have done for us is that they've created a wrapper to already use this polyline into a readable format or a drawable format, so to say. So we're going to get to the developer guide section, or rather, if you go to the documentation section and then go to the routing, where is routing? There we go. And go to the JavaScript section of the routing API. You'll see that we already have the version 8 routing call listed here, and that, let's do this, and that the JavaScript wrapper to draw a route from a flexible polyline or draw a polyline from a flexible polyline already exists. So what I'm going to do here is just copy this out for now and put it in my results section. So you have, take this back. So now what I should get is a nice little polyline on the route that I call for. There you go. Now the trick was also to change the color of the polyline, right? I had mentioned a certain color with a hex code of the color with the polyline. So now this was just to show that the route line or the polyline has all the properties that of a map object, because in the end the polyline rather is a map object that we saw in the first few days of 100 days of code. So as like the other objects, you can also change properties of this line, wherein you can change the stroke color, the border, the line width, etc. So I'm going to change this one to the color that I mentioned. So it was 034F84. Let me see. So 034F84. So now if you check this, you'll get the route in the color that you wanted. So there you go. You have the polyline drawn as the task for day 42. For day 43, what we're going to do is we're going to get three alternative routes or additional three routes for the point from A to B. So right now you see that if you check the routes object that we get with this call is just one route. And that's because we did not say that we wanted more routes. So the routing API optimizes the perfect route. So in terms of speed, shortest, fastest, etc. And if you want to specify that, you can see that if you go back to the documentation, routing API, routing version v8, and go to the API reference section, you'll see that you have the routing destination, origin, transport mode, and then you have let me see, the routing mode, right? So you can choose for like either a fast mode or the shortest mode, whatever you want. So I'm going to add this here and say I want the short route. And then within that, I want to also have alternatives, right? So if you scroll up in this API Swagger, you'll see that, or rather scroll down. Yeah. So the simple parameter called alternatives can give you as many, or rather up to 6 alternatives to the route that you received. Of course, the alternative routes can be seen only if there exist as many alternative routes. This is to indicate what is the maximum number of routes you want to see as a result, right? And this is pretty useful when you want to give the user the choice to choose the route. That the routing API thinks that this is the best route you can go, but if there's some area you want to avoid, or if you want to specifically go through a certain area because there are a lot of trees there, or you just like the road, then you can always let the user choose what route they want to go with. So I've added alternatives as 3, and now if I check my routing API, I see that I have received a total of 3 routes. So yeah, a total of only 3 routes is possible between these two destinations or these two positions. And while you can see only one route on the screen, so let's draw out all the 3 of them just because. So what you want is you want to draw it for all the routes. So you have this result dot routes. I'm going to use for each, and then within that I'm going to use this. So for each route, and have this out here, and then change, let's see, let's clean up the indentation, yeah, and then change this one, the results dot route of 0 to all routes, right? So if we change this to this, you should have all 3 routes that are possible drawn out. With day 44, we are going to look at how timing is important for any route, right? For example, if you follow a certain route at 6 a.m. versus you follow the same route at 6 p.m., you know what the issues are, and if that route is the most favorable route for getting from A to B because of traffic and other things into consideration. So we're going to do exactly that. We're going to take the timing into consideration, and in that we're going to look at departure time. So you can also have arrival time instead, but I'm going to check departure time. And now with this, I'm going to define my departure time. So again, you can find the explanation in the API Swagger. under the routing API. And the way the time is defined is, where did this go? Yeah. So the way it is defined is you have the year, the month, the day, and the T, and then the time. So I'm going to copy this down, and I'm going to write a future time, of course. So today, let's see, let's have the 24th of May. Okay. And then I am going to type in the time as 09, so which is 9 o'clock in the morning. And now if you see that, you have 4 different routes for the same point from A to B for 9 o'clock in the morning. If I think my color selection is not necessarily the best, what I've done is basically I've given a different route to a different color to every route just to show you how different they are. I'm going to change that to gray, black, just to show you how you get different routes. So you have these 4 different routes, and the first route being the most favorable one, being the one in the blue, the color blue that we saw a while ago. So this straight route is the most favorable route at 9 in the morning. But now if you want to check the same at 1500 hours, which is at 3 p.m. on the same day, the route looks the same. Let's change this a little bit. What we can do is, let's change to another date. Let's see if that makes any difference. So you may not find a lot of difference in these times wherein people are not traveling a lot, but you'll still find some routes. So if you check, so I put the date as 26th of May, 3 p.m. And so now you see you have only 3 routes which are possible on this route. And the 4th route that was visible for 9 a.m. may not be visible because of some restrictions on that particular day, on that particular time, some road closures, or even that the fact that the route is not the most feasible one considering traffic. So there you go. That was day 44 of 100 Days of Code. With day 45, we want a summary of the whole route, right? Whenever you get a route from A to B, you get how much time it's going to take, how much kilometers have you traveled, etc. So we want to get just that with day 45. And the way we are going to get it is again going to the return parameters and then asking for a summary. So when you ask for a summary of your routes within the result, so I'm going to add summary to the return parameter. And now if you check the objects, so if you check route 0, within the sections you have arrival, departure, polyline, and then you have the summary. And then the summary is such that you have the base duration, so the starting time, which is from now, how much time you need to wait. This is because we've specified a time in the future. I'm going to remove that. Let's do this. I'm going to remove this, keep it simple. And now you have different sections, and then for every section you have an arrival, departure, polyline, and then you have the summary. So the summary has base duration, the duration of the total road, and then the length traveled, right? So what I want, and again, this is in seconds. This is in seconds, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print out the summary for you. So I want the summary for each route, and you will need to add up the summary for each section. So right now we don't have a waypoint yet. So right now it's just section, like one section, but eventually you'll have many sections of a road and you'll have to add up all the summary durations and time lengths of the whole route. So what we're going to do is quickly define let total length comma total duration, right? And then we are going to initialize both of them to 0 here within our loop. So every time I want to make them 0, every time we get into the loop, we want them to be 0 for this. And this is again for every separate route, right? This is for every different route. So we have this. And now within that, what we have is for each section, you need to add up the total length with the length. So what I'm going to do is just here after the markers, let's say, what I'm going to do is total length is section summary length. So what I've done is I've gone to each section. Within the section, I have used the summary, and within that summary, I'm using the length, and this length is in meters. I'm going to do the same for duration. So you have duration here, and once I keep accumulating it, I'm going to print it out here, right? So just below this, but still within the root, for every root I want to print this out. So I have document dot get element by ID. Now I have named my division here as panel. So if you see the route details, I've named it as panel. So I'm going to name it as panel, and inner HTML. Now I want to dish out the route number, right? So my route number is basically, what you need to do is you need to get the index of the route of each route that you're accessing, and then add +1 because we count routes from 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So I'm going to do this. Just use result.routes.index of the route. So where are we? Here. So I have this. So I have index of route +1, and then plus total distance. Then you have the total length. And this I'm going to divide by 1000 just to show you it in kilometers. Plus time taken. And then we have the total duration, right? And this is in seconds. So what I want to do is I want to let me complete this. Next line, let's give it that, and that's in, yes, in seconds, right? So what you'll see is this route 1, you have route 1 distance is 12.35 kilometers, time taken is 250 2,521 seconds. But now seconds is not a very intuitive way to read it, so I'm going to make it to minutes. I'm going to just add a small function here to convert it into minutes and seconds. And so let's see. So what I've done is I've added a 2 minute in seconds function, which basically does divides the number by 60 and then minutes by mod 60. That's it. So, and I'm going to add this function to this. So my total duration will be split up into minutes and seconds. And then I can just get rid of this. So yeah, if I drive from here to here today, I will take 41 minutes and 30 seconds. And if you just want to add the timing, in this case, the time duration, the departure time and date that we looked at, you can just try adding this and see how this one changes for different routes. So we get 4 different routes, and each route takes certain amount of minutes. More time. I think I have incremented it somewhere where it is not becoming 0. So maybe let's change that, but yeah. Let's change this here and you'll see. Yeah, there you go. So you have the right time and right kilometers, and you'll see that the routing API gives you the routes in terms of like considering both the distance as well as time. So there you go. That was day 45 of 100 Days of Code. Keep following the Twitter handle @yourdev to get more days of code. This week, since 41, we are looking at routing version 8. So keep following us for knowing more about routing version 8. If you have missed any of the videos before, there's a playlist called 100 Days of Code in the YouTube channel called Here Maps. Also, we also have links to our blog posts as well as a GitHub repository in the description below. So keep following us and keep following 100 Days of Code. See you next time.